Ladies and gentlemen, we are moving and turning our attention now to one of the issues that is absolutely at the forefront of everybody's mind. And of course, that is the issue of climate change. Now, as part of the 2015 Paris Agreement, we know that governments around the world pledged to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And this, of course, to reduce the disastrous effects of climate change. And companies, we know, have a big role to play in reaching these goals. And so in the next session, we're going to be deep diving into the Climate Ambition Accelerator and how the program is supporting companies to set science-based targets in countries of Eastern Europe and beyond. Now, to kick off our session, I'm delighted to introduce our keynote speakers, Mr. Marco Lambertini, who is, of course, the Director General of the WWF, as well as Mr. Viacheslav Fetisov, who is the United Nations Environment Program National Goodwill Ambassador for Russia. Once we've heard from these leaders, Mr. Fetisov will pass you on to our panel moderator, and that is Alberto Carrillo Pineda, who is, of course, the Managing Director of Science-Based Targets Initiative, and he will moderate our panel. For now, allow me to hand you over.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to talk to you today. The evidence of our impact on the planet has never been greater, and perhaps more importantly, the understanding of the consequences this is having not only on the natural world, but also on our lives, our economy, our health. This is a massive cultural shift from how we perceive and value nature, from one where we have been for centuries taking nature for granted. Experts and decision makers today see nature loss and climate change as the greatest systemic risks to our economy. In the 2021 World Economic Forum Global Risks Report, all 5 top-ranking risks related to the current climate and nature crisis. And the public sentiments and concerns are very similar. We're beginning to understand that stabilizing the climate and conserving ecosystems and biodiversity, or in other words, nature services and resources, it is not only a moral and emotional issue, but also an imperative to secure development and prosperity, sustainable and equitable. Today's ecological crisis is turning into an economic and humanitarian crisis. Science has never been clearer. This is the decade when we must recognize the value of nature, reverse its loss, and put it on the path to recovery. A nature positive and a carbon neutral twin global goals. To do this, we need to transform the way we consume and produce towards climate and nature positive transitions in key economic sectors with the highest footprint. Energy, agriculture, fishing, forestry, extractives, infrastructures, and of course, financial systems that should support these nature-positive carbon neutral transitions. We already have a clear global goal for climate, net zero emissions by 2050. A global goal for nature is also emerging. We hope to be agreed next year at the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. And it is to become nature positive by 2030. More nature by 2030 than we have today, to put it simply. And both are interdependent, and we will not solve the climate crisis without nature and vice versa. All this is putting pressure on companies from competitors, regulators, investors, customers, and also employees, and it's triggering change. Up to date, 750 global companies have set science-based targets for climate, and 1,800 companies are taking action. Science-based targets for nature are being developed, including land, freshwater, biodiversity, and oceans. The role of these targets is key. They allow to make sure that companies are taking appropriate action to fulfill their direct contribution to the global climate and nature goals. However, the world is far off track of reaching these goals yet. And to tackle the climate-nature crisis, we must exponentially grow the number of companies setting and delivering science-based targets. Companies with approved science-based targets already have demonstrated that even the hard-to-abate sectors can reduce their emissions by half, gaining competitive advantages. Climate and nature targets can be achieved together, for example, through deforestation-free supply chain, investment in high-quality nature-based solutions. And I will invite you to look at our report if you're interested in the topic called Blueprint for Corporate Action in Nature and Climate. Adopting and implementing these targets may seem challenging. However, if unaddressed, the challenge will soon turn into a risk, a cost, and finally, an existential threat. This is beyond ESG commitments or regulations. This is about becoming a future-proof company. First, companies must understand and measure their entire environmental footprint. Do you know where your business impact lands? You should, and if not, ask for support. Then the companies should set and deliver science-based targets on climate and nature. And finally, must be transparently disclose and proactively manage operational and regulatory risks related to nature and climate. I'm proud to say that the UN Global Compact has been in partnership with WWF, CDP, and WRI for more than 6 years, driving the science-based target initiatives. Today, we know that there is not going to be a prosperous future for business and society in a degraded planet. I have no doubts that as business leaders in Eastern Europe, you will take the opportunity and responsibility to lead progressive transitions towards a carbon neutral, energy positive future. And again, science is clear. The time to act is now. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. From Moscow with love. I'm very pleased, and for me, it's a huge honor to be part of this week in the United Nations General Assembly. And of course, it's a very important year for all of us, especially on the two big conventions in Kunming, China, and in the Glasgow COP26. You need to look at both of them as a one event, one urgent task for our humanity. We must connect protection of the nature and nature-based solution with the necessity of solving the problem with the climate change. Even if we will reach the net zero level, let's say tomorrow, based on the science, it will take another 50 years to bring our planet back to the normal. This mathematics means that it will be taken about reaching net zero by 2050. Our planet will be back to normal only by 21st century, bringing the whole new generation under global uncertainty because of the climate change. Our strong view is that we need to move now in parallel with the two topics, moving toward net zero emission from our countries and the business level, and also using nature to solve the problem with the CO2 that is already in the atmosphere of our planet. Last May, together with the UN Secretary General on behalf of all Russian Society for Nature, we have launched the Net Zero Carbon Economy Alliance in Russia to help Russian companies and international companies in the country to move toward reaching UN Sustainable Development Goal and targets of the Paris Climate Agreement. We are recommending business to join we meet business coalition partnership to move toward the net zero and the UN decade for ecosystem restoration initiative to protect our nature and develop nature-based solution. Next week, with the support of UN Global Compact and WWF, we are organizing a first international Congress on sustainable finance in Russia. Our strong position that we need anonymous rules and sustainable finance everywhere in the world, in the USA, European Union, United Kingdom, China, and Russia. I think it's very important to have same rules and regulation for everybody. We want the C-level officials of the companies to speak up. Today, the CEO is head of the states, so much be very consistent and transparent on the key topics that are global threats for well-being, such as climate change. It must be part of their fiduciary duty. With the level of our scientific research and innovations and high education level of population, Russia has the potential to become a world leader in various forms of the net zero and climate resilient technologies, renewable energy from hydro to wind, from power of the solar and early warning systems. We are facing global problems. No single country can solve them alone. And we need to work all together, unite as a one team for the future of our planet, our kids and grandchildren. Let's play together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Alberto Carrillo. I am honored to be moderating this panel today. I'm Managing Director of the Science-Based Targets Initiative. And first of all, I would like to thank the UN Global Compact for organizing this discussion, and to Mr. Lambertini and Mr. Fetisov for their kind remarks. Second, I would like to welcome our distinguished panelists that are going to join us today. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a minute. And finally, I would like to thank all of you for joining us for this discussion about accelerating climate ambition in Eastern Europe. Today's session will explore the experiences and the solutions that leading companies in Eastern Europe are facing as part of their decarbonization journey, and in particular being part of the Climate Ambition Accelerator and going through the process of setting and implementing science-based targets. For those of you who are not familiar with the Science-Based Targets Initiative and the Climate Ambition Accelerator, please let me give you a brief overview. Science-Based Targets Initiative is a joint partnership between CDP, the UN Global Compact, WWF, and WRI. And the four organizations have been working together for the past 6 years, driving the adoption and implementation of climate targets in the corporate sector that are consistent with the pace necessary to limit warming to 1.5 degrees as established in the Paris Agreement. The Climate Ambition Accelerator is a 6-month program designed to equip companies with the knowledge and skills necessary to go through the science-based target setting process. The program was set up in April 2021. And we have over 600 companies now going through this process of ambition acceleration spread across 25 different countries managed by the local networks of the UN Global Compact. And we are going to hear from the experiences of some of the companies that are going through this journey today. We have in total over 1,800 companies in the Science-Based Targets Initiative. And as I mentioned, over 670 companies in the accelerator. And what best than to hear from those companies directly. Without further ado, please let me introduce our panelists. We are going to start with Ms. Joan MacNaughton, who is Independent Non-Executive Director of the EM Plus Group. And Joan, if you can introduce yourself, please, in 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Alberto Carrillo, and thank you very much for having me here. It's a great honor and a pleasure. N Plus Group is the biggest aluminium producer outside China. It's the largest independent hydropower producer, and it's been working on low carbon aluminium for a very long time, but we'll come to that later, I think, in the session. We've been active in the UNGP since 2019. We're now a global sponsor, and we seek to share advice and experience with other companies in the hard-to-abate sectors like our own by showing that you can align with the Science-Based Targets Initiative. And when you show people that it can be done, I think that's the most effective way to persuade them to increase their own ambitions. And as the first Russian company to join the Global Compact, we've been helping with the local network in Russia. We're helping with running the sessions, setting them up, peer-to-peer learning, and we actually help provide the translations for the sessions themselves. So we think it's a great program. We're trying to play a leading part ourselves, and I look forward to talking about some of those actions in a little more detail soon.
Great. Thanks a lot, Joan. Please now let me welcome Ms. Vali Marszalek, who is Executive Director of the Global Compact Network in Croatia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vali Marszalek, and I run the Global Compact Network in Croatia. I joined the Climate Ambition Accelerator to support 7 Croatian companies, as well as all other companies from around the world participating in the global track of this amazing program. This is also the reason why I am here with you today, and I'm very much looking forward to today's discussion.
Thanks, Ali. And finally, please let me introduce to Mr. Polat Şen, who is Chief Financial Officer for Arçelik.
Thank you, Alberto. I would like to welcome everyone and take the opportunity to thank them for the all participants of this event today. My name is Polat Şen, and I am the Chief Financial Officer of Arçelik, which is a leading global manufacturer for home appliances. Arçelik is a 66-year-old company which operates in more than 100 countries with manufacturing facilities in 9 different emerging economies. We are already a leading figure in our industry, but we are continuing to challenge ourselves every day by setting ambitious targets on sustainability journey. Our 2030 targets have been set in line with Sustainable Development Goals and aim to contribute to the solution of environmental and social challenges. Arçelik's involvement in the Climate Ambition Accelerator is reflecting our commitment to transform our business and set an example for the whole industry by accelerating our transition to carbon neutral and near zero waste operations. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks all for the introduction. Let's now jump into the discussion, and probably we go in the same order. So let me start with you, Joan. You mentioned that you were the first Russian company that committed to align to limiting warming to 1.5 degrees, and you come from an energy-intensive sector. And I would like to hear more about why the company decided to take this challenge, and what is the journey that you have followed, how you're using your leadership position to advocate for this massive transformation that we have ahead of us.
Thank you. You'll have to stop me at some point because I'm passionate about this topic, and I work a lot on climate and other sectors. Our involvement predates the 2019 decision to align with the Science-Based Targets Initiative. Rusal, the part of the company that produces the aluminium, set climate goals in 2015, which was quite early for the hard to abate sectors. So it's kind of in the DNA of the company already. But we established a new independent board at the beginning of 2019. And under that board, we have been working hard. We've been challenging ourselves, as Arçelik has, to do more and to do more year on year. Yesterday, we actually published our net zero goals, explaining how we will reduce our emissions by 35% by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. Now, to put these in context, we are already among the top 2 or 3 lowest carbon aluminium producers in the world, and we have a leading aluminium brand. And why have we done it? Well, we've done it because it's the right thing to do, both for the climate and for the communities where we are based. But we've actually done it because we think it makes good business sense. If you don't start on this transition, then as the tide goes out, you'll be one of those boats that's left stranded on the beach. So in specific terms, we are actually working across the whole value chain, and that starts with the power that we consume. We're very fortunate. Over 90% of the power that we consume is already from hydropower, which is we produce ourselves. but we also are seeking to increase that percentage. We have something called a new energy program of $250 million being spent by 2026. That will allow us to produce more hydropower with the same hydropower stations, using the same amount of water, so less energy used for producing that hydropower. And of course, the more hydropower we have, the less high-emitting power generation we use, so that reduces emissions in itself. We're also looking to expand our portfolio of low and zero carbon power generation through more renewables, such as more hydropower, biofuel, and in due course, we're hoping to be a leading producer of green hydrogen, which can be very, very important in aiding the transition in industrial processes. As well as the power side of things, if you will, we're looking across all of our processes. So we're trying to optimize our use of raw materials, we're improving our energy efficiency generally, and we're using new technology to control our processes more effectively. And we think energy efficiency is really important. A lot of people say it is. It goes straight to your bottom line, actually, but somehow not everybody pays the amount of attention to it that they perhaps could, but we think it's really important, and we've certainly benefited already. Also, in terms of new technology, we actually are converting our aluminium smelting process to much lower emission technology, pre-baked anodes, and our own revolutionary inert anode, which takes away all of the carbon emissions from the use of the anodes. It actually gets you virtually to zero carbon, which is crucial. To the extent that we won't be able to reduce all of the emissions across the value chain, even while we're working with our consumers and our suppliers, we'll seek to offset them through the application of technologies like carbon capture, use and storage, CCUS, and through nature-based solutions. So we are actually responsible for the largest forestry initiative across the whole of Russia. But we know that it's not enough for leading companies like ourselves to act. To generate the climate mitigation we need, we've got to involve the whole industry. So we have taken action. For example, we've helped to connect the hydropower community to the hard-to-abate sectors by introducing the International Hydropower Association to the Mission Possible platform. We're trying to promote carbon transparency in the aluminium market through the efforts particularly of our chair, Lord Barker. We've got the London Metal Exchange to introduce a passport which enables voluntary carbon disclosure, and we're pressing hard to produce a separate certification category for low carbon aluminium. We advocate for greater climate ambition in Russia.
Let me stop now.
Many organizations. And you want me to wrap up? And we also
just to go back to this point,
engage globally as well as in Russia.
Thank you very much, and really exciting to hear all the journey that you have followed, and congratulations on your net zero target. It's really exciting to hear of a company with this magnitude and the leadership that you are displaying. We want to go back to this point and to hear more about how you can help bring other companies in the sector to follow the same journey. Now, I would like to hear from Vali, who is working, you mentioned, with 7 companies at the moment in Croatia. And if you could share a little bit with us about the perspective, the challenges that you perceive, the opportunities, why companies are following this journey, and anything you'd like to share with our audience.
Following amazing progress of Joan's company, I would say that main challenges that companies identify on their path to decarbonization is integration of new technological solutions, as well as a strategic and long-term approach that requires professional knowledge and expertise. So to that sense, what is needed in the region, I believe, is education on climate action, including science-based targets and professional training. Companies do want to do their part in achieving climate targets, but they still lack the important know-how to do this the right way, the way that will result in achieving the needed emissions reduction by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050, while at the same time maintaining a competitive advantage. And I believe that we can all here agree that science-based targets provide just that, a clear guidance how to achieve climate goals and keep the business going strong. So this is the reason why companies in Croatia and in the region joined the Climate Ambition Accelerator.
Great. Thanks a lot, Vali. Great. Now let's hear from Polat. You have been one of the companies that has already gone through the journey. Your company committed and has science-based targets approved now. And so we would like to hear about the journey that your company has followed, and also anything that you'd like to share with other business leaders on why they should consider joining the accelerator and set science-based targets.
Thank you, Alberto. Setting science-based targets is a challenging task because it really requires dedication and radical shift in every part of the company. We started this change at Arçelik many years ago. Our vision is respecting the world, respected worldwide, almost over a decade now, which is allowing us to view sustainability as our North Star and we never diverge from it. Even through COVID, we never steered away from our sustainability goals and had some significant achievements. And the pandemic has reminded us that listening to science is more important than ever. Beyond the immediate challenges of COVID-19, science should be our guide in the looming global climate crisis. Within the last months, extreme weather events around the world provided a glimpse into a future of climate change. And the IPCC's landmark report came with no surprises, actually. And without a doubt, human activities are the primary cause of the climate crisis. The window to keep global warming below 2 degrees, let alone 1.5 degrees, is rapidly closing, but there is still time if we can act now. Against this backdrop, all parties must unite in science and prioritize sustainability in their strategies. So at Arçelik, we have made our transmission, we have made it our mission to set goals and reflect the most recent climate science findings. Last year, our targets to reduce GHG emissions have been approved by the Science-Based Targets Initiative. These targets are set in line with the Paris Agreement's goal of limiting global temperature increase to well below 2 degrees and place us among the 1,000 companies worldwide in 2021 to have such targets. This year, we have gone even further and set a 1.5 degree target, which is in the approval stage by the Science-Based Targets Initiative. We have made a commitment to reduce our absolute scope 1 and 2 GHG emissions by 30% and our absolute scope 3 emissions from the use of our sold products 15% by 2030 from a 2018 base year. we have developed scenarios by analyzing where we are now on a global scale and devised a bold plan. The Science-Based Targets Initiative has certainly become the international standard of reducing emissions for businesses. These targets also imply improved corporate reputation and investor confidence, regulatory resiliency, and driving force for the innovation. It is evident that we do not have a lot of time to turn around the horrific impacts of the climate change, both economically and socially. I believe that setting a long-term strategic vision and aligning the organization under that vision is a leader's legacy. Setting a vision, putting sustainability at its core, should be every leader's ultimate goal. Leaders have a limited time span in company, but the company culture prevails. Initiating a transformative change in an organization is extremely challenging, as we are questioning status quo here, and we are challenging conventional ways of doing business, and change is painful. But a successful transformation increases the resilience and boosts the performance. My message to all the corporations at the beginning of their journey is to establish a structure that puts responsibility starting from their company, first at their board level, then going forward in the value chain down to the suppliers. And the real change will happen if we, as the businesses, have an impact on not only in our own company, but also all the stakeholders in the value chain. Businesses have the responsibility to convey this message to their supply chain and their customers as well. So that's why my advice to every business leader is to set these goals and follow through. And the Climate Ambition Accelerator is a great platform to help you along the way.
Thank you. Okay, we have a little bit less than 9 minutes left. Let's go back to each of you with some final remarks. Joan, you mentioned about the efforts that the company is taking to bring other companies along and integration with other industry groups. And Polat mentioned also the challenges that we are facing with the pandemic and the importance of bringing science to the center of decision-making. My question to you is, do you identify challenges or opportunities as we recover from the pandemic, in particular for the sector, and how can we accelerate the adoption of science-based targets in the aluminium sector?
Would you like me to go now? Well, clearly we're all coming out of this terrible shock, and it's been a terrible economic shock as well. As we seek to really improve the resilience of our economies and restore growth, we have to think about what kind of growth. So if you look at some of the hard to abate sectors, and in some regions such as Eastern Europe, there's quite a legacy of energy intensive or high emitting infrastructure that has to be replaced. And so companies should be urging their governments not to just support business as usual, but to help them invest for the future, to start the transition of their business models, which will be better for the economy, better for their countries, but also better for them, because the fact is that the companies who don't start on this transition really risk being left behind. And they will not only put the climate at risk and the well-being of their communities at risk, their own businesses will be at risk, from lower attractiveness to investors. Their risk profile will go up, they risk stranded assets, they risk loss of competitiveness. And frankly, with the way the world is moving now, they may even risk the loss of their markets, because they may not be allowed to send their goods and services to markets which have already taken this seriously. So advocate for the COVID recovery packages really to focus on the energy transition, on helping a just transition, on supporting innovation. And just one final point on this, we have to look to free trade for green goods and services if we're going to make the change and make the change at the pace that is required. We just cannot afford to put further barriers in the way of what is needed here.
Definitely. Yeah, very good point. Thanks a lot, Joan. Let's go back to Vali. In your previous intervention, you mentioned some of the challenges that companies are facing, including challenges to incorporate new technologies, the lack of long-term thinking, and also the need to build capacity in education. Maybe if you can provide in a couple of minutes how you think that the Climate Ambition Accelerator can contribute to address these barriers and help companies navigate through this transition?
Well, the program provides companies with the needed know-how, how exactly to set measurable and meaningful goals and identify necessary steps to achieve them. So I strongly believe that companies that finish the Climate Ambition program will set science-based targets and do all they can to achieve them, because it is in their best interest. As Joan said, they know that the future of their business is to a large extent determined by the climate change. So they want to progress to that direction. What is needed if we want to deliver on Paris Agreement, again, following Joan, we need governments and investors to step up with institutional and financial support. So we need strong partnerships and collaboration if we want to save our planet and secure a better future for next generations. But for the business sector, the Climate Ambition Accelerator and science-based targets is the right way to go.
Great, thanks a lot. And finally, Polat, you mentioned in your previous intervention that your company went first with well below 2-degree targets. Now you're in the process of setting up 4-degree aligned targets. And my question to you is, how does this change the day-to-day of the company from the inside? What are some of the actions, some of the decisions that change now that the company has this level of ambition internalized? And yeah, if you can share some of the insider perspective from a company that has gone through the science-based target setting process.
Alberto, our ultimate aim is to set an example in terms of climate stewardship. So we have focused our efforts to reach the lowest carbon footprint to the extent possible. And the short-term actions do mean a lot in terms of reaching the long-term targets, actually. We believe that the milestones on the way to decarbonization and ultimately net zero is becoming carbon neutral first, followed by achieving the science-based targets, and ultimately becoming a net zero company as of 2050. So we have recently become carbon neutral, considering our global production footprint in 2019 and 2020 with our own credits generated by the energy efficient refrigerators we put in the Turkish market, which had above the average efficiency levels compared to the market. This makes us this makes us proud and pushes us forward to accelerate our energy efficient appliance projects in the other jurisdictions as well. So in 2019 and 20, we have purchased 100% renewable electricity in Turkey and Romania operations, which covers more than 75% of the global electricity consumption in our facilities. So we are aiming to sustain our carbon neutrality position for scope 1, 2 emissions globally, and to achieve this. And we will need to invest additional $50 million by 2030 for the renewable energy. The second milestone is the science-based targets first. And foremost, as the home appliance manufacturer, our most visible impact in the value chain comes from the energy consumed by the appliances that we are producing. So 99% of the Arçelik's carbon footprint is coming from the scope 3 emissions and the use phase of the products. And when they're sold, makes up almost 80% of those emissions. So we cannot really close our eyes to that. Considering that we are operating in more than 130 countries, we are everywhere globally in people's homes and can have a real impact on the world by succeeding to produce the most energy efficient appliances. This is where the challenge of our science-based targets are coming from, actually. So we have to focus predominantly to grow in the ASEAN countries, in the middle class, and where the middle class is growing in those countries. And the demand for electrical appliances will be higher and higher every year. So our challenge is coming from enabling absolute emission reductions while growing in numbers. So therefore, one of the most important critical short-term actions that we are working on is increasing the energy efficiency of the products, even in the countries where there is no current legislation or regulation that forces us to do. So in line with our science-based targets, we are aiming to follow a strategy in countries like such as South Africa, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, where the regulations are not that strict right now. And this May, also we have issued a 350 million euro green bond with a 5-year maturity, which marks the first of its kind in the international markets from a Turkish industrial company and releases our green financing framework, which outlines the eligible use of proceeds, project evaluation, and the selection criteria, all the proceeds for the green bond issues. So we are aiming to use the bond to finance our green projects, and I think that's one of the most important steps that will take us to 2030 science-based targets. As the ultimate goal, we have set ourselves to become a net zero company 2050. I know that we are limited time, but I just would like to say that in 2050, Arçelik is envisioning with the technology that we know today, we have shared our roadmap very transparently. This roadmap will likely to change in several times as the technology advances, but we have really committed ourselves with the even more challenging targets, but the idea is always to be transparent as possible.
Great. Thanks a lot, Polat, and thanks a lot to all of you for your leadership and also for the generous time for today's panel. We have come to the conclusion of this panel, and now I would like to welcome Mr. James Grabert, who is Director of Mitigation of UN Climate Change, and to thank you all again for your participation in the panel. Thanks.
First, I would like just to thank everyone on this panel and who participated in this event for providing such an insightful and stimulating and encouraging discussion. We are meeting at a critical moment in time for the global climate movement, where urgent action and change is needed at a pace which has not been reached around the world. As the IPCC Working Group report released last month and the UNEP Indices Synthesis report that was released last Friday clearly shows we are at a code red for humanity, with the effects of the current warming of our planet already being felt. Indeed, 2021 has been a year of extreme weather events, from record-breaking floods to devastating fires, and unless there are rapid, sustained, and large-scale reductions of greenhouse gas emissions, the goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees compared to pre-industrial levels will be beyond our reach. The Paris Agreement is all about collective efforts, and everyone in society has a role to play. Together with national governments, the private sector, including all of you, businesses and investors, are essential players in mitigating the climate crisis and building the resilience to its impacts, as solutions to a problem as global climate change will need to start at the local level. So the need for local level action should be increasingly recognized and amplified. And I'm glad to hear the commitments and actions that the companies represented here today are undertaking through initiatives such as the Climate Ambition Accelerator and science-based target initiatives, and campaigns such as the Race to Zero, with thousands of non-state actors committing and delivering net zero targets. These are significant steps in the right direction for business in Eastern Europe to achieve net zero emissions in line with the Paris Agreement goals and help create a more inclusive and resilient economy. This also provides hope that the transformation to a low-emission future is on the way, a future enabled by zero-carbon recovery that will prevent future threats, create decent jobs, and unlock inclusive, sustainable growth. However, this transformation can only be fulfilled when mitigation actions are combined with adaptation practices to build the resilience to the future impacts of climate change. And these long-term commitments must go hand in hand with credible short and medium-term actions, plans, and targets, which allow the tracking of success so that the solutions can be shared globally. Businesses must also ensure this is a just transition. It must leave no one behind through social dialogues involving workers, consumers, and partners in the spirit of radical collaboration to sustainably develop industries, promote decent work, and build capacities for the benefit of local communities. Recognizing, reducing, and accounting for the environment impacts of business actions will not only help to decarbonize business activity to a level where the goals of the Paris Agreement can be achieved, but also provide stronger business models that are less vulnerable to risk and external shocks. By implementing measures to produce new green and decent jobs for workers and healthy solutions for communities, we can help ensure that the post-COVID recovery is net zero and beneficial for all. As such, it is in the interest of companies all over the world to limit global warming 1 to 1.5 degrees and join the Race to Zero, the Race to Resilience, the Glasgow Finance Alliance for Net Zero campaigns, and many other campaigns, and to ensure transparency in their actions and progress tracking, for example, through the UNEP Global Climate Action Portal. We heard a lot about this today, and I'm really thankful to the speakers and to the actions that their companies and organizations are taking. I urge all of you to embark with us on this journey and make COP26, which takes place in Glasgow at the end of this year, a success, and start this decisive decade with a sense of urgency, ambition, and transformational action. Thank you.
And it's a very big thank you to you, James, as you remind us that we have the decade of action ahead of us, a decisive decade, you've termed it. And of course, listening in to the earlier panel, reminding us that promises do not equal progress. And instead, we really need to unlock the partnerships that allow us to move towards our sustainable development goals. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we come towards the tail end of our time together, it's my absolute pleasure at this moment to introduce to you the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy, that is the Honorable Marina Sereni. Now, as the Honorable Sereni takes the stage, let's just be reminded that in 2013, she was elected Deputy Vice Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies and was a member of the Foreign and EU Affairs Committee. Over to you, Vice Minister.
I am pleased to address this forum organized by the United Nations Global Compact. Italy has been a long-standing supporter of this initiative. As of today, more than 400 Italian business and non-business actors are part of the Global Compact Italian network. Full involvement of the private sector is of paramount importance to move towards the fulfillment of the SDGs within the decade of action. Governments and private sector need to join hands in order to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its SDGs. The Italian private sector is on board on their achievement. Many companies, both large ones and small and medium enterprises, are committed to developing sustainable practices. I thank the Global Compact Italian Network for its role in the promotion of corporate sustainability among businesses of any size. SMEs are the backbone of our productive system, giving a significant contribution to tackle current global challenges. Sadly, the pandemic heavily hit them. Therefore, the Italian government has supported SMEs with the Patto per l'Export, funded with 5.3 billion euros so far. We will not be able to live up to the highest expectations of the younger generations without an effective multi-stakeholder approach to global issues. Let us focus on global food systems and sustainable energy production. They are at the core of our multilateral agenda this year. As G20 presidency, Italy promoted the Materia Declaration. It recognized the importance of partnership between private and public sectors in order to improve agri-food systems, accelerated digital transformation and innovation. In preparation of the Pre-Food System Summit, Italy had called on all stakeholders to participate in shaping strategies and solutions toward better food systems. Many companies joined the 5 action tracks leadership groups. The level of engagement from the private sector has been remarkable, with a very constructive attitude. Besides, Italy launched the Food Coalition. It will be a significant opportunity to move towards the achievement of the Zero Hunger goal. The participation of a huge number of people at the pre-summit and the passionate voice of young people in the global debate makes us optimistic in such a common endeavor. The very same goes for environment. The Italian G20 agenda focuses on the nexus between climate and energy, with the first G20 joint energy and climate ministerial meeting. As a group, we achieved important results. We stressed the opportunities offered by innovative technological solutions. We highlighted the role of sustainable cities, and we argued in favor of the alignment of global financial flows towards a green, sustainable recovery. We will build on these efforts in view of the Leaders' Summit in Rome next October. A clean and sustainable energy transition will foster growth and resilience. It will also promote international technology cooperation, investments, free and open trade. Moreover, as partner of the UK COP26 presidency, we expect the conference to provide the stage for a full and effective implementation of the Paris Agreement. We need more ambitious national climate commitments. Italy will host in Milan the pre-COP, the preparatory ministerial meeting ahead of the conference. We will also host the Youth for Climate Driving Ambition event. It will give young people from around the world the opportunity to draw up concrete proposals to be put forward at the pre-COP. We count on their ideas and their enthusiasm, as they can inspire us with their creativity, their sense of innovation, their care for sustainability. These 3 words, sustainability, creativity and innovation, will also be the main features of Expo Dubai. Italy looks forward to opening its pavilion and displaying the best of its technological, scientific and industrial innovation. We will show the image of a resilient, dynamic and innovative country capable of building on its tradition to project itself towards the future. In our vision, all these events should be an opportunity to raise the ambition of all the stakeholders in the global climate action, prompting an accelerated deployment of clean technologies, suggesting low emissions pathways for fast-growing emergency economies, and so on. Action everywhere is important, but investments on clean energy in those developing countries will be the most effective way to reduce emissions. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2030 Agenda suffered a patent slowdown due to the pandemic. However, the unsustainable nature of the global development pattern so far was clear well before the COVID-19. That is why we need to build back better, focusing on socio-economic inclusion and pursuing collaboration rather than competition on global issues. Italy is a strong supporter of the 2030 Agenda. We believe in and follow the principle of leaving no one behind. Based on that, we keep on launching and conducting and agree initiatives of technical assistance in those countries most in need, such as in Africa. We will continue to work with them through know-how sharing, food emergency contribution, the strengthening of agriculture, building infrastructure, supporting the health systems, and suggesting assistance solutions for people with disabilities. In our cooperation with partners countries, the environmental dimension in the 2030 agenda is equally important. Indeed, climate, environment, and clean energy are preconditions for sustainable development, economic and social stability, peace and security. I thank you and I wish a full success to the UN Global Compact in its daily work and its far-reaching mission.
It's a massive thank you to the Honorable Marina Sereni, reminding us, of course, that we need to unleash action everywhere, and we need to do it without leaving anyone behind. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our time together. We have heard from leaders from across an array of stakeholder groups, and we've engaged in dialogue surrounding all matters from mastering leadership in sustainability to gender equality to climate change. The conversations have been robust, they've been insightful, and they've certainly been energizing. Now, in case you've missed anything, don't forget that all the keynotes and all the discussions will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel shortly after this, so you can go and access them. And of course, you can learn more about our campaigns by following the United Nations Global Compact on social media. And we're always using the hashtag Uniting Business and hashtag Global Goals. But it's not over just yet. Make sure that you do stay tuned into the live stream for the 76th United Nations General Assembly in just a few moments. And this is going to be happening at the top of the hour. Also, don't forget to go and check out the Young SDG Innovators Summit on the Innovators Summit stage. That's running now. And a little bit later, starting at 11:30 Eastern Time, on this main stage will be the launch of the UN LGBTIQ plus standard gaps analysis tool. So that's certainly a launch that you don't want to miss. And that's going to be followed by a global SDG ambition session where we're going to be hearing from Brazil and the United Kingdom and their companies in particular on their latest SDG commitments. Now, finally, as promised right at the beginning, we're going to turn to our partners at Peace One Day for live coverage of a really special session on business for peace. And of course, don't forget to join us tomorrow at the SDG Business Forum right here on Hop In. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me today. It's been an absolute privilege and an absolute honor to serve you as your MC and host today. My name is Nozipho Shabalala. It's goodbye for now. And remember, do stay tuned in for the General Assembly right after this at the top of the hour. It's goodbye.